So some actual progress has now been made in the Nintendo Switch hacking scene, right? Where people are trying to modify their Switch so that they can, generally through software, run unsigned code and then run games that either are on the system that they have not purchased or games that people have developed in their free time that then run on the Switch. Of course, you can also run applications that aren't on there, things like that. And it looks like a new bug/exploit has been found in software version 3.0.0. So if you're above that, so if you've been playing things like Splatoon 2, for example, or ARMS Online, anything like that, you're above that, so you're not going to be able to, well, go back and do this exploit when it eventually comes to light, because people right now are working on it. So for the most part, I would say about 90% of people are not going to be able to use any exploits that come out through this. However, it is a look at, well, what could have been if Nintendo hadn't have fixed it in 3.0.1. So a description shows up on Switchbrew, which talks about the service manager. The description reads, prior to 3.0.1, the service manager, SM, built-in system module treats a user as though it has full permissions if the user creates a new SM or service manager port session but bypasses initialization. In 3.0.1, service manager returns error code 0x415 if initialized has not been called yet. And this is pretty big because the idea here is it will give full permissions really to any service on the OS. So you can run services that will not be checked or really stopped. They'll just go right through, which of course means that people can run exploits to do things like custom firmware, so they can run different things on the system, including the custom OS that you see run on things like PS3s, for example, or PSP, which was obviously the most hacked system I've seen in a long time, was the PSP. And of course you had custom firmware, custom software, everything. And in this case, it looks like something has been found here that would allow the Switch to do something similar. And of course, different people who are really into the hacking or modding scene, people who are really researching and attempting to crack the Switch, had a few things to say on Twitter. This is the person by the name of Sires M on Twitter saying things like, it can't be understated how big this bug was. If you want Switch hacks, don't update to 3.0.1. It might take significantly longer if you do. For context, the SM bug is what's enabled basically everything from game ROM FS, save file, sys module, code dumping, to even other known bugs. So here's the deal. It looks like, well, after Nintendo fixed this bug that apparently has been around for a little while because they've been using it for, well, everything at this point, according to them, where they're dumping ROM files, for example, save files, they're pulling full code off of the system, was from this bug. It was allowing them to run all of these services without any checks from the system. So now that Nintendo has fixed it, more than likely they either found it, or we've talked about how HackerOne is basically enabling hackers to get paid for these things. There's a good chance that somebody brought to light that this existed, and now it's been cut off by Nintendo in 3.0.1. So again, if you have updated or you have that firmware or more on your system, you're not going to be using this exploit. This is how they were planning, from what I can tell, to run some kind of code to eventually allow custom firmware to be loaded. So at this point, the Switch is still not able to be hacked on the latest firmware. It looks like that's been pretty much fixed at this point. But now, of course, we're going to look to see what they do with the other 10% of Switches that are not on the latest firmware. They're at 3.0.0 or below. And I guess see what they do with it, because they're going to continue to work on it according to them at that firmware and see if they can uncover anything, because, well, they're allowed to run whatever they want, so they can pull code, they can attempt to run stuff over and over and see if it works. At this point, it's not going to affect Nintendo's bottom line as much as it would if they did not fix it, so you don't really have to worry about these, I guess, these people trying to hack the Switch to affect any sales or anything, because let's face it, the Switch is having a hard time staying on shelves, and honestly, at this point, people may want to buy it more now because, well, if they want to hack the Switch, you can go back and buy a new one, and it probably will be on a lower firmware that is, well, exploit enabled in this case. And it definitely shows that Nintendo is pretty much on top of this scene. They are working to fix any of these bugs that could be exploitable, and whether you would like that or not, maybe you are on the camp of let's get this thing hacked so we can do some really cool stuff with it, or maybe you're on the side of I don't like hackers, I don't want this system to be hacked and opened up to possible piracy. I understand both sides here, I really do. But we'll see where this goes from here and see if another bug does eventually come up. It sounds like this one has existed for quite a while. It just came to public view after it was pretty much patched out and was, I guess, less useful to them going forward. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.